Shane Harder here from Seeking Unemployment. Welcome, guys. This is the real estate investing show where we learn how to become gainfully unemployed together. Now, today's episode is number 11, so I'll just do 11 there. And this is all about the worst deal that all these investors had ever done. So if you haven't seen any of the episodes up to this point, you can click on this little link right up here, and that will take you to episode 1 in this larger series where, again, I ask all these investors the same question and see how they respond to it. I'm trying to get to the truth of each of these issues. So without further ado, let's learn about the worst deal that all of these investors had been a part of.
Yeah, the duplex where we found out that the water bill was going to be covered by us after the fact because that wasn't covered by their help, and then 2 additional tax bills that we weren't expecting. That was a blow. And then the comps were all bad. All the comps, there's no comps that were in that little pocket that would work if I wanted to get out of it. So we're even paid too much for the place. I blew it in multiple ways. That was luckily, it was really cheap for our situation out of the pot that we had. But if I would have made that same mistake and that was the only money I had, that would have been devastating and detrimental. So and if I give any advice to anybody, it's twofold. One, learn to pull comps yourself. Don't trust anybody selling you stuff to pull comps because they're always going to pull the comps that seem the best for them. And I'm not saying they're trying to hurt you. I'm saying everybody is just trying to make a buck, and it gets excited when they think something proves them. It's a lot of confirmation bias. And a lot of people that just don't go the next step to really put in the due diligence to make sure that your investment is protected. So learn to run your own comps, learn to verify comps, get things double checked. When you ask, make sure that you understand the way programs are going to run, the way, how much your utility has been at those houses, what they're going to be. Make sure that you double check on all taxes. Make sure there hasn't been something recently passed that's going to raise your taxes. There's no additional taxes. Like, do those extra steps, and they're really easy to do, and everybody's friendly when you call, and it's easy to take care of.
I've lost money on deals for sure over the years. As I've gotten more and more into this business, that happens very, very rarely now. But back in my when I was cutting my teeth, a lot of deals. Will work out to be smaller successes than what you thought. And some deals that you thought were going to be, maybe a success, they don't always work out that way. Maybe your timing was off, but you get better at that as time goes on. And so, these days, I know how to buy properties a lot more strategically than I used to. I have a lot more opportunity than I used to. So rarely do we screw up now. But the other thing is I found over the years, like I said, at one point when I was a workaholic, it was all about the money. I was always focused on the paycheck. And as time has gone on, and I've done things like New Orleans, and I've also done a lot of things not really pertaining to real estate, but I've gone to places where they didn't have clean drinking water, raised some money with some other entrepreneur friends of mine, and brought them water filters. There's certain, I measure things now in terms of fulfillment, happiness, making a difference. After a certain amount of money, it doesn't really necessarily inspire you the way it used to, because if I sell another home, it's not going to mean the difference between eating and not eating. It's not going to make, doesn't mean, make the difference between me being able to send my daughter to college or not send her to college. So the money becomes less meaningful over time. And as time went on, at least for me, I found that, making a difference became really important. And So I'm not encouraging people, by the way, to do deals where you're going to lose money. You want to sustain and be able to give back more. A lot of people actually repel money because they have the wrong mindset. They're scared of money. They're turned off. A lot of stuff in the people's subconscious. That's a whole other episode. But a lot of people do repel money. In order to make what you do sustainable, and if you want to help a lot of people, you've got to get yourself in a good spot financially. And one of the things that I teach people is that money is a lot like oxygen. I never worry. I never think, oh, I hope Shane's not breathing too much because there might not be enough air for me. Oxygen is the most important thing we have, yet we don't think about it because we're not worried about it. We know there's always going to be more. So when you can put your money on autopilot, so it keeps coming in, hopefully passively. The money keeps coming in while you're sleeping, while you're traveling, while you're volunteering, whatever it is you're doing. If that money keeps coming in and you're not worried about it anymore, that's when you can go have a really big impact and make a really big difference. So it's very, very important for people to get over their fear of making money. And, especially a lot of people who are heart-centered, they're the ones who need the most help getting over this money thing. They think it's almost like, okay, being heart-centered is here and making money is here. They're polar opposites. And they're not. They go hand in hand. The more you make, the more giving you can be, the more people you can help, the bigger the difference you can make. And so that's really important too. So when I talk about most successful deal, doesn't necessarily mean it was the biggest money maker.
That's a pretty fairly easy one for me. I lost almost $30,000 from a contractor that walked away with my cash.
Oh no.
So, and that's, right before Christmas. I think maybe you and I had talked about it originally in our conversation, but I laid in bed a lot of nights staring at the ceiling, just thinking to myself, I just lost $30,000 of my family's money. How am I going to get around this? And there was some anger mixed in there. I eventually sat there and I thought to myself, if I can just get out of this somehow, which I did, and I would never give up that experience now. It hurt so bad, but I would never give it up right now, and it's helped me get to where I am today. And I laid there at night, staring at the ceiling, and I thought to myself, if I can ever get out of this, I am gonna do whatever I can to help other investors that might be in this area or in this situation.
Yeah, we lost money. We bought 16 units. The first units we bought in Salem, Oregon, we probably lost a couple $100,000, maybe between 100 and 200,000. We lost on that deal. It took us like 7 years to finally sell that property. We bought 40 small properties from 2007 through 2009, to maybe 2 to 8 unit properties. And we lost money on those over time. Early on, we were managing them well ourselves, and then we started growing into bigger properties, and we didn't do as good a job on managing those, and so they struggled. I don't know how much we've lost on those, but it was significant. Trying to think. We fortunately have not had big deals that have lost money, so we're very fortunate. We've never had a loan go bad or anything. So
those townhomes, and they're the only deal that I lost money on. One flip one time, and I lost like maybe $15,000. These are the first ones that we are looking at a likely loss. It's possible that we could do okay,
right? Because you haven't sold it yet, of course. But
right. But we kind of know where we're sitting, and even if we made $500,000 a piece on these two, they weren't worth it.
Yeah.
They just were bad deals, and they weren't worth the time and energy.
There's a couple. I'll talk about two. So one was a flip. So it was a flip that I bought from a lady. So a lady bought a house. She lived in the house with her husband, and then they moved out of state for work. And the house was in great shape, beautiful home. They let some renters live in it. The renters lived there for a while and then did a little bit of damage. Then they moved out, and they didn't want to rent it again. And it had sat empty for a while because they were out of state. They tried to list it with a realtor. The realtor was bad at their job, so they didn't get it sold. They didn't do much marketing on it. And so they found me on my website. I went and looked at the house. Like I said, it was a gorgeous house. It was in great shape. It didn't need any work. And so I bought that house for $175, and the plan was to sell it for $210, with just doing a little bit of touch-up work here and there. And so I changed out the light fixtures to modernize the light fixtures, and I staged it, and I put it on the market, and expected it to go pretty quickly, and it didn't. And what I missed was that, so this property was a big house, which people want in this area of town where it was, and it didn't have a backyard. Like it did, but it was super sloped. It wasn't usable. And so I didn't think that would be a problem because the area where this home is mostly older people who don't have kids anymore, who aren't concerned with things like that. And so it was also a 2-level house. And so my big miss was I was wrong. Everybody wants a backyard, even if they're not going to use it. I think they just think that that's what they want, right? It doesn't have it, so they think they're buying something that doesn't have a feature that every other home has, even if they're going to use it or not. So they think
right. If you buy a house in a neighborhood with 3-car garages everywhere, you want to have a 3-car garage, even if you only own 1 car.
Right. Absolutely. Right. So I didn't think through that properly. And so a lot of people were looking at it, seeing it didn't have a backyard, and just were leaving. And then because it is an area with an aging population, the home was 2 levels, and there were living spaces on both levels. And so the people that were looking at the home didn't want to have to deal with
stairs
going up and down every day. And so it sat on the market a lot longer than it should have. I eventually sold it, and I think I made, I don't know, $1,000 or $2,000 at the end of the day, but it wasn't worth the time and the effort and everything that went in, the headache that came with that place.
But you could have lost money. So
could have lost money.
Yeah.
Could have lost money. Yeah. Another one I did was I bought a house. I bought a house that was in heavy disrepair and was too busy with other deals, and didn't have the contractor base to work on this one right away. And so I bought it. I sat on it for a couple of months, and then ended up selling it to another investor. And by the time you factor in the closing costs I paid when I bought it, the closing costs I paid when I sold it, I think I might have broke even, maybe. Carrying costs I had, right? And just I didn't. It was a case of I didn't buy that one right enough to sit on it and make a decision later. Like that was one I either needed to start renovating right away and get it on the market, or I needed to sell right away, and just didn't pay the right price for it.
So I could probably have a couple of answers for this. So I think the most interesting one is probably my biggest deal, but least profitable. And so again, this is going back to when we were in the last, the housing crisis. But I had a chance to buy and sell a big portfolio of properties from a bank. And so it's really rare that you find a buyer that wants that many properties, that can absorb that many properties all at once.
Yeah.
But we found a buyer. He actually came to me from a different wholesaler. And so, when you have 250 properties, you stop. You're not the one really in control anymore, because it's not like you have 10 different buyers that are all wanting 250 properties at one time. So he was really the only buyer at that time that wanted that many properties. And so he's really the one that got to call the shots. And so even though it was 250 properties, it was probably my least profitable, certainly my least profitable per property. But even one of my least profitable overall, I made $100 a door. So $25,000, which $25,000 is $25,000. It's not like that's chump change necessarily, but when you consider that you could, in some cases, wholesale one house and make that, it just, didn't compare.
Yeah.
But again, you just don't have buyers that are willing to buy that many houses typically at one time. And so you have to go with what they're willing to do. He got to call the shots on that. So short period of time, see, the bank wants to get paid off now. And so when they make that good of a deal. And so I don't remember what it was probably about $1.5 million. I mean, it was still a phenomenal price for that many houses, but I know it was between $1 and $2 million, probably $1.5 million or so. And so if I had had that much cash where I could have paid the bank literally the next day, because it's not like a traditional closing where you have your 30-day window and you go through title companies and all this kind of stuff. It's like, okay, here's the bank's properties, yes or no. And if it's a yes, they want the money tomorrow morning. And so had I had that kind of resources, I probably would have tried to do that, but I didn't. And so this other buyer could fulfill that. And so we just did that. And bank got paid the next day. I got paid the next day, and we moved on.
Cool. All right, guys, that wraps up this video. If you'd like to connect with us and partner on some multifamily deals, click on the link below, and we can send you all the info on how to get started there. If you'd like to check out the videos from the beginning of this playlist, click on this link right here. To check out the link that Google wants you to watch, click on this link right here. And lastly, if you want to make sure you see the future videos that we'll be posting in the same series, click on this subscribe link right here. You'll be all set to go. Thank you so much, guys, and we'll see you on the next one.